talking about the derivation for your bending moment of the beam. Okay, so bending moment of beam is uh, with respect to it, we take a beam. So beam is literally any uniform cross sectional structure that has one of the dimension much more compared to the other dimension. Okay, so then we take it like a cantilever. Cantilever in the sense we fix one end to a rigid surface. So rigid surface is where it is not going to move. Okay, so this is very rigid in the sense it's not going to move, or it cannot be, yeah, it cannot change its position. So then you take the other end of the beam and you can apply the load here. So in this case, what happens? Your beam is going to bend, and even after removing the load, we'll have bending of the beam. So this was already covered. So what happens? What actually happens is you will get something like this, which is shown in the black. Okay. So the layer which is in the top surface is going to expand, and the layers which are on the in the bottom surface is going to get contracted or shorter. Okay, so they'll become shorter, and then the layers above in the upper surface will expand. And always there will be some layer which is in the center of your beam, which is not going to change its length. So that is what we call as a neutral axis, neutral layer, neutral surface. Okay, depending on whether you're taking only one single filament or a layer or a complete surface. Okay, so this is about your bending. So now what I do is I just take 20 of these kind of beams. So 20 beams means like of the same dimension, like L is equal to 1 meter, height may be 1 meter, sorry, 0.1 meter, and width may be 0.15 meter, like that. Then what I do, I apply the same load, like 1 kg or 0.5 kg. So each of the beam will have the same curvature. Curvature in the sense, this arc will have the same similar structure. So if I now join all those 20 beams together, then it will make a big, uh, very big circle. Okay. So this is like your giant wheel. So you may see some giant wheel, which is, this is how they make it. They make a small portion of the arc. They fix all those arcs together. Then it becomes a big wheel. Okay. So this is like your big wheel or your giant wheel, which is made out of uh, all these beams after deformation. So after deformation, it will become like an arc, and then you can have this kind of circle. So now the black one is one of those arcs. Red is second arc, blue is one more, green is one more, and then this violet will be one more beam. Okay, so you can see all these things will make a circle, big circle. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just consider only this portion, one of those portion. Like one of the portion is like only this part. Okay, for further explanation. Okay, so this is like you just take a pizza and then you don't eat it all together, right? You make the slices and then you take one of the slice. So in the same way, I'm just taking one of those slices. So this will look something like this. I'm just going to write that again in the next diagram. Okay, so this is about your this is how you get this. Okay, so you get this pi, or a small portion of your circle. So here what happens is you can see here what is the assumption is O is the center of that big circle, and then R is the distance between the neutral axis and the center of the circle. Okay, so that is your capital R. And each of the layers, as you know, like if you take a beam, so if you take beam, it is made of several layers. So and each layer will be at constant distance. Okay, so if you take the distance between AB and CD, it will be what we call, this is what we represent as X. X is the distance between each of the axis or each of the layers. Okay, so even you can take the EF is the next layer. Okay, so if you take any of these layers, they are at constant distance of X. So these are the assumptions, and then theta is the angle made by this arc, okay, A dash B dash or CD with respect to the center of the circle, okay. So this is what we have, the derivation, sorry, the initial assumption. Then what we do is, if you take the initial distance of any of this arc, okay, so any of the arc or any of these A, B, C, D, E, F layers, it is almost same, because that is assumption. Like if you take a beam is a uniform cross section structure, so the length has to be constant. AB is equal to CD is equal to EF when there is no load, that is without any load or without any deformation. What you have is, you will have this AB is equal to uh, AB is equal to CD is equal to EF. Okay. So after that, what happens? Once you apply the load, so when you get this kind of arc, A dash B dash is going to expand, E dash F dash is going to contract. CD will remain same. So it is not going to change. Okay. So that is what we have already written here. And then what we do is, so due to deformation, so I told here that AB is going to increase to A dash B dash and EF is going to decrease because the lower layers are going to decrease. Then it will decrease to E dash F dash. So then if I want to know the length of AB or CD, so I will just CD, because from the initial assumption AB is equal to CD is equal to EF. So from this diagram, if I take this diagram, so the distance between uh, the distance of CD, which is so I'm talking about this distance CD. It is like a arc. So if I want to write this distance, then you are going to use r and theta. So it will be r times theta. Okay. So CD is equal to r times theta. So as all length has to be same initially without any deformation. So this will be also equal to AB and it will also be equal to EF. Okay. So that is the first thing that you get. Then you are going to take the distance, the length of your next layer, which is your A dash B dash. Okay. So if I want to know the length of this A dash B dash, again I'm going to use the same geometry, and then I will write this A dash B dash here. Okay. So A dash B dash is nothing but, so this is your A dash B dash. So A dash B dash is A A dash O, or you can take B dash O into theta. So that is what we wrote here. So A dash O into theta. So again, A dash O, I'm just splitting into two things. Okay, so A dash C plus CO. Okay, so this is this distance plus this distance. So that will give the your A dash O. Okay, so A dash C plus CO. That is what I wrote in the next line. Okay. uh, then you have you just substitute A dash O is nothing but, it is A dash C is nothing but x, that is the distance between two layers, and CO is the radius of the circle, so which is your capital R. So you will have A dash B dash is equal to, so if I want to write this further, then what happens is, yeah, A dash B dash will be equal to uh, r plus x into theta, or x plus r into theta. Okay. So this is what we have. Then we want to know the change in the length. So change in the length, how do you get is, you take the original length. Original length is AB, and after deformation you have A dash B dash. So the change in the length, you can write it as A dash B dash minus AB. So which is nothing but it will be x times theta. So you got this, this is nothing but, it is your strain, okay, strain which is developed, delta L, okay. So why we are doing it is, we want to know the Young's modulus, okay. So now I will just take this in the new slide. So in this new slide, what I wrote is, I wrote the original length. Original length is AB, which is r times theta from the diagram. And then change in the length is your A dash B dash minus AB, which is your x times theta. So this we got it from the previous uh, mathematical formulation. Okay. Then you define your Young's modulus. Young's modulus for the filament AB. Only I am talking about the AB. I am not talking about the entire beam. I am just taking only AB filament. Okay. So in that case, what happens? Young's modulus is you use the same formula: lateral strain by lateral stress by lateral strain, or longitudinal stress by longitudinal strain. Then you further simplify this. So stress is nothing but force per area, and then your strain is change in length to original length, the ratio of change in length to original length. So you get finally something like y is equal to f times r by a into theta. Okay, so this is what you get. So from that you get force. Force is nothing but you just cross multiply. Okay, you keep y on the left hand side, and then you send your ax to the left hand side numerator, r to the denominator. Okay, so now you got this force. So then you have to define the bending moment. So bending moment is normally it is a force into the distance of your filament from the neutral axis. So we are talking about the filament AB. So as we are talking about the filament AB, I'm just I want to know the distance of AB from neutral axis. So which is nothing but x. So you'll have force is F into x. You substitute for the force from here. So force is nothing but force is equal to y by r into a times x square. Okay. So that will be the bending moment for AB element, only for the filament AB or for the layer AB. Okay. So this is what we got. So bending moment is y by r into ax square. So I'm going to just rewrite this again on the in the new this one, and then so maybe I'll write it here. Okay, so bending moment for filament AB will be equal to y by r into a into x square. Okay, so this is for your single element. Okay, y by r into a into x square, that is for single filament or single layer. Now if I want to know the bending moment of the entire beam, so if I want to know the entire beam, then we know that beam is made of several layers. So we have to take the summation of all the layers. So we did only for one layer. So it has so many layers, maybe 100 or 200 or 500 layers. So we have to take the sum of all those layers. Only then it gives it will be the bending moment of entire beam. So what we do is bending moment of the beam is nothing but summation of the bending moment of all the layers. So if you take bending moment of this this plus this, then what happens? It will give the complete bending moment of the beam. So this is what we have done. So bending moment of beam is equal to summation of each of the layer. So this is what we got for the first one of the layer AB. So you can have the same, you can do the same formulation for other layers, and you will still get the same value. Okay, y by r into ax square. So this is summation of ax square, we are going to represent it as ig. Ig is nothing but geometric moment of inertia. So this can also be written as ig is equal to a into k square. A is the area of cross section of your beam, and k is the gyromagnetic constant. Okay, so it is going to be changed, geometrical gyromagnetic constant. So it is going to change with respect to the geometry of the beam. Okay, so again here we'll have two cases. The first case is your rectangular beam. So you can take a beam which is rectangular beam like this. Okay, so which is having length, width, and height. So best example is your scale. So it has some thickness, it has some length, it has some width. So this is like your rectangular beam. You can also take a cylinder. So instead of taking a rectangular beam, you can take this solid cylinder like some pipe. Okay, solid pipe which is completely filled. Okay, so this cylinder you can take, and then you can do the, this is also a beam. So you fix this end and then you apply the load on the other end. So then it becomes your cylindrical beam. So for a rectangular beam, the area is, what we do is we take the area of applied area of the surface of applied force. So even though this beam is fixed, so this beam is fixed, so there is a length, there is width and height. But normally what we do is when we write the area, we take the area of only the point where your force is applied. So the force is applied only in this case. So we have to take the area here. Okay, so area is nothing but B times D. In principle, if I want to write the area of the beam, then it is L into B into H, right? But we are not going to write this because the reason is we are not going to take the length, okay? Because the force which is acting here will decrease as you go to the fixed end. So we are not going to consider the length. We are going to just take the length into breadth, or length into breadth into height, or breadth into thickness. I'm taking here this as thickness D. Okay, so that is why we write the area of your rectangular beam as A is equal to B times D. Then this is constant for your rectangular beam. It is D square by 2, 12. D is the thickness or the height, okay, thickness or the height of the beam. And then if you simplify, the bending moment of your rectangular beam will be y by r into Ig. Ig is nothing but AK square BD cube by 12. Okay, so this is what you have. Okay, y by r into BD cube by 12. The same thing you do for the cylindrical one. So your bending moment is same. Okay, y by r into AK square. So you have to just substitute for your area and your K constant. Okay. So for a cylindrical beam, again, you are going to take area for only your only the surface where your force is applied. Okay. You don't take into consideration the length. Okay. So I think yes. Okay. So just a minute. So here in this case, what happens is we are going to consider only the area of this surface. Okay, so this is nothing but it's like a circle. So we are going to write A is equal to pi r square. Okay, so that is what we are written here. A is equal to pi r square. We are not going to consider the length. Okay, length is not taken into account. Okay, we are going to just take the area of this surface. Area of this surface. Okay, so then K square is again a constant. You have to just remember this. Okay, so someone asked a question, I think the same question. Okay, okay, K square. So K square is a geometrical constant, and it depends on the geometry of your beam. So for example, if you take your rectangular beam, it is K square is D square by 12. And then if you take your cylindrical beam, so in that case, what happens? Your K square will be R square by 4. This is a constant. You don't have to worry how you get it. Okay, so you just remember for rectangular, it is D square by 12. And then in case of your cylindrical, it is R square by 4. So now if I substitute this, then what happens is y by r into AK square. So which is nothing but y by r into your a into k square pi r square plus r square and into r square, which is r to the power 4 by 4. Okay, so you have to remember these two equations. That is nothing but your relation for your bending moment of your rectangular beam. So this one, okay, so this one you need to remember, and also you have to remember the bending moment of a cylindrical beam. Okay, so these two things you have to remember. So in exam they may ask this for 8 marks, and they may ask only for one of them, so you don't have to write both. You just read the question properly. Okay, if they ask for a rectangular beam, then what you do is you write, you take this this one, you tell that area is B into D, and then K square is D square by 12, and then you write this. Okay, bending moment of rectangular beam is y by r into BD cube by 12. If they ask for cylinder, then you have to just write this. Okay, in that case you don't have to write the first one. Okay, so if you write, it's fine, there is no harm, but only thing is you may it will be a little bit waste of time. But if you write, it's good, well and good, because then you are sure that you don't have any confusion. Okay, so rectangular beam and cylindrical beam. So is it fine up to this? So do you have any doubt with respect to this? Okay, so now what we will do is we will try to derive the expression for your Young's modulus. Okay, so we will try to derive the expression for Young's modulus by using what we call as single cantilever. Okay, uh, so this is again continuation of your previous one. Okay, so it is nothing very different than the previous one. it is almost similar to the previous one. Okay, so you don't have to worry much. If you understand the previous uh, class, then it will be easy for you. Okay, so it's not very much difficult. Okay, so I will just do this. I'll just make it two parts, equal parts, so that I can do the complete derivation here. Okay, okay. So okay. So now, what is Young's modulus? Young's modulus is nothing but it is a, ratio of linear stress to linear strain within the elastic limit. So how to find your Young's modulus experimentally? Okay. How I can get this Young's modulus experimentally? So you have a experiment in your physics lab. So we will come to that later when we go to the lab session. Okay. But now, right now, so this whatever derivation we are doing, this is related with that experiment. Okay, so how to get the Young's modulus of a given material? So I will give you a stainless steel beam. Okay, beam is like you can even take a scale, and then I will ask you to find the Young's modulus, or I will give you some iron rod, and I will ask you to do the Young's modulus of that. Okay, so how to do that experimentally? How to find out? So here we are going to get the empirical formula for finding the Young's modulus. So for this, as it is already written here, we are going to use something called a single cantilever. What is the single cantilever? Single cantilever is a, a beam which is when you fix one of the beam, sorry, one end of the beam. So this is your beam. I'm going to fix one end and the other end is free. So you can apply the load on this end. So then it becomes a beam. Okay, so sorry, it becomes a single cantilever. So you apply the load here. So that is how you do the your uh, experiment. Okay, so Mn. So if I ask you to do the Young's modulus for a stainless steel, what you do is you fix one end of the stainless steel, the other end is free. You apply the load here, and then you can calculate the. You can find some depression, and then you can get the your Young's modulus. Okay. So, or if I ask you for a iron rod or a some other copper rod, what you do, you fix one end of the rod, you apply the load on the other end, so it becomes a single cantilever. It can be any material. Okay, it doesn't mean like it has to be only a stainless steel scale or something like that. Okay, so now what we do is I'm going to just write the same diagram only in one dimension. Only one dimension means I'm going to write only the first part. Okay, so I will try to write in the bottom because I need little bit space. So this end is fixed. So let us assume Mn is the beam. So Mn means this is the first M end is fixed to the rigid surface, and N end is free, and you can apply the load in this end. So that is the Mn. Okay, so that is the beam. So what I do, I just take only one layer, which is your neutral axis. So as we saw in the previous case, we have so many layers or so many filaments, right? I'm not going to take all the filaments. I'm going to take only the neutral axis. So this Mn represents the neutral axis. Okay, and let us say it is the length of this uh, neutral axis is L. Okay, so your capital L is the length of your neutral axis. So then what happens is if I apply the load, so this beam is going to bend, and if I remove the load, again it's going to come back, but it won't come back to the same position. It will come back to some slightly, it will have a curvature. Okay, so it is having some curvature. Let us assume this is the curvature. So I'm not writing the entire beam, I'm writing only the neutral axis. So I'm representing only one line. So in the previous case, what we were doing is we were having more like I was showing like a beam. Okay. So here, this is n dash. N dash is a new position. So I think I will write this. Okay. So just a minute. So M is the fixed end, N is the free end. So what happens to M? M is not going to change because it is fixed. But after you apply the load, and then what happens? There is some kind of depression. So this I again already I have explained. So let us call delta is the depression which is produced after your application of the load. So this is what we have for a given filament. So now what I will do for further performing this our what we call as the derivation, I will take one more point, some point called as P, somewhere in the at somewhere here, okay, in the middle of or somewhere at the distance of x from the fixed end, okay. So P is at x distance. So then what is the distance between these two, P and N? It is L minus x, because that is the L is the complete or the L is the length of your beam, neutral axis Mn. So if I tell P is at x distance from M, then the distance from P to N is L minus x, okay. So after depression, so what will happen to this P is going to go to P dash, and let us assume y is the depression here, okay. So let us call y is the depression from P to P dash, delta is the depression from N to N dash, okay. So both are depression, but it depends which point we are taking, okay. So we are taking uh, uh, P as one of the corresponding point in the beam, okay. You can take anywhere, you can take here, you can take here, doesn't matter, okay. You can take any point or any distance. So that is the reason I'm just giving x. X is some arbitrary distance, okay. So now if you want to explain, or if you want to uh, write the bending moment with respect to P, so then what will happen? So normally you know the bending moment is, so if you take the external bending moment, so I will write this is your external. So I will take the external bending moment is nothing but it is the force which is acting on the beam into the perpendicular distance from neutral axis. So this is your external bending moment, okay. So external bending moment is this, again we have already used in the previous derivation, force into the perpendicular distance from the neutral axis, okay. So that is your external bending moment. So this will become something like the force that you are applying is W. W is, you can further simplify, this is M times G, okay, but we will just keep it as W, okay. So W is the force which is acting, and the perpendicular distance is, as we are taking Pn is the, sorry, Mn is the neutral axis, I will take the distance Lx. P is at a distance of Lx, okay. External bending moment at P, okay. So I'll just be more sure, at P, external bending moment at P is force into perpendicular displacement, perpendicular distance of P from neutral axis, okay. So perpendicular displacement, so that will be L times x, L minus x, okay, sorry. L minus x is the perpendicular distance of P from N, because Mn is neutral axis, so we need to take this distance, okay, L minus x. So now what we'll do is, in the same way, we will write this, I will call this as equation number 1, okay. Then we will see what happens, okay. So this is your external bending moment. Then in the same way, we can have the internal bending moment. What is the internal bending moment? Internal bending moment is your the bending moment due to the restoring force, okay. Internal bending moment. So this is developed within the body. So there are two different things. External bending moment is the force, this is the force due to the applied load, okay, and then or the moment due to the external applied load. The internal bending moment is the moment which is developed within the body, which will always try to take the body to the original position, okay. So in that case, if I want to write this, so as we have taken, this is a rectangular beam, then you use the same what is the formula that we had derived in the previous class, which is nothing but y by r into ig. Okay, y by r into ig is the your bending moment. Ig is nothing but, so where your ig is your ak square or summation of your a into x square, okay, and it depends on the structure. If it is a rectangular one, then it is bd cube by 12, and then if it is a cylindrical one, then it will be pi r to power of 4 by 4, okay. So this is going to change with respect to the geometry or the shape of your beam. So now this is your external bending moment and internal bending moment. So I will call this as 2. So now what happens is always your what is the restoring force? Restoring force is equal and opposite force to the applied force. So the same thing happens here. So even if you take the external and internal bending moment, so if you take at equilibrium means at any given point of time. So what happens? Your 1 will be equal to 2. 1 is nothing but your external bending moment will be equal to your internal bending moment. So that is the it has to satisfy. Only in that case, what happens? Your beam is not going to uh, break or it's not going to come out. Okay, so that is so you should always satisfy the external bending moment to be equal to the internal bending moment. Or in simple words, the restoring force is always equal and opposite to the applied force. Okay, so if you want to talk in terms of load and stress, so stress is always equal and opposite to the applied load. Okay, so that is what we in simple words. So that at equilibrium you will have internal bending moment to be equal to the external bending moment. So you just equate these two equations 1 and 2. So 1 is nothing but W into L minus X. Okay, so I will write that in the left hand side. So W
Sir,
into,
can you
yeah,
explain once again why external bending moment is equal to internal bending moment?
okay, fine. So your external bending moment should be equal to internal bending moment because it is the property of your elastic material. So whatever we are doing here, this is only within the elastic limit. We are not talking beyond the elastic limit. So when it is in the elastic limit, that means when you apply the load, this object will always exert a equal and opposite force to come back to its original position. So if I'm trying to bend this using my finger, then what happens? There is equal and opposite force on the finger, which is exerted by your object. Okay, so the finger is the external force, and your the force which is developed within the beam is your internal or restoring force. So restoring force is nothing but it's normally your stress. Okay, and the external force is nothing but your load. So when you take this bending moment, the same thing happens. So as I explained, so when you are applying the load on this beam, so that is what we are taking the external bending moment. External bending moment is due to the load W into L minus X. But when it comes to the internal bending moment, this is related with your Young's modulus. Young's modulus is nothing but this is your restoring force. Okay, so your based on the restoring force, it will always try to come back to its original shape and size. Okay, so that is why this will become a internal bending moment. And at equilibrium is, so if you take any object and if you try to deform it, like if you want to even if you take a rubber band, if you try to stretch it, what happens? It always tries to go back to its original position. That is your due to your internal bending moment or internal force. So this is why when at equilibrium, that means even this has to be within the elastic limit. Okay, we cannot go beyond the elastic limit. So within the elastic limit, that is at equilibrium, what happens is your external bending moment will be equal to internal bending moment. Okay, so then only your material can still be elastic. So that is the property of your bending moment. Okay, okay. So how distance from neutral axis is L minus X? Okay, so that is okay. That's good question. Okay, so normally we are considering Mn to be the neutral axis. Okay, so Mn is the neutral axis. This is your neutral axis. So we are not writing all the axes. We are writing only the only single axis. So if I want to define this distance, so distance has to be always from the neutral axis. So sometimes what happens, even if there is some load, the neutral axis can displace means it will change, right? So in that case, M is already fixed. So I cannot take M as a reference point. I have to take always the N as a reference point. So now when I'm talking about the bending moment at P, so we are talking about this is the bending moment at P. So then it is a force. Force is your external applied weight, whatever W is M times G into the perpendicular displacement of from of P from neutral axis. So what is the distance of P from the neutral axis? So let us assume this P is somewhere in the above axis. So if it is somewhere slightly above this previous axis, okay, that means there are so many layers on the above this neutral axis and also below neutral axis. So in case if your P is above neutral axis, you should always take with reference to the N, not with respect to M, because M is not going to move. It's not going to change its position. It is like a fixed position. So that is why we take this distance as L minus X. So sometimes you may ask why not X, why L minus X? The reason is M is completely fixed, so we cannot consider that as a reference point. We have to always take the one which is free end. Okay, so that is the reason we are taking it as L minus X. Okay, so I guess that will answer your question. Okay, so at equilibrium, what happened is we have external bending moment to be equal to the internal bending moment. So now what I will do is I am going to write this as 1 by R. Okay, 1 by R. I am going to keep 1 by R on side, and rest I will send it to the other side. Okay, 1 by R is equal to, you have W into L minus X. Then what happens? Y is going to come down, so divided by Y into Ig. Okay, so 1 by R I am keeping in the left hand side, and rest I am going to write it in the right hand side. So this I will call it as equation number 3. Okay, so now if you want to know the y is nothing but y is your Young's modulus. So y is unknown. Okay, y is unknown. So now if I take W is nothing but M times G. I know how much mass I am applying. If I am applying 0.5 kg, 1 kg, 2 kg, 3 kg, then I can find this. I know I can find the length of the your beam. So this I can just take a scale or something. I can find it out. X is the point where you are applying the load. Okay, X can be found out by using your scale or anything. Then what is Ig? Ig is nothing but AK square, right? Ig is AK square. AK square, I'll just, for example, I'll take it is BD cube by 12. What is B? B is the breadth. Then D is the thickness. So you can just find the thickness and breadth of your beam. So you just take what is the, you can take a scale and you can find this is your breadth, and the normally your from this end to this end is your D. So you can find the B and D, right? So now you can find everything. Only thing unknown is Y is unknown. At the same time, R is also unknown. R is unknown. So now if what is my aim? My aim is to find the Young's modulus of your beam. But the problem is here I want to find Y. So Y is what I want to find. So I want to find the Y. But the problem is I know everything in the right hand side except one by the R in the left hand side. If I know this R, then what happens? I can find the Young's modulus of this material. So now what I will do is I will just use some mathematics and then I will try to find this R. Okay. So R is unknown. If I know R, then my I can my what is that? My job is complete, right? Because I want to find the Y. So Y is equal to all the known terms I know. So you are getting all the terms except the R. So you have to find R. How to find R is you are going to use some mathematics. Okay, for this you have to use you have to take the help of your mathematics and then do it. Okay. So now what is R actually? So R is nothing but it is your just so if you take if when you are describing this arc, so R is nothing but this is the radius R. Okay, so this was let us say this is your CD, and then there was so many other things. So we have to take the R is nothing but it's the radius of your this radius of curvature of this arc. So how to get this radius of curvature is by using one some of your mathematical formula. So radius of curvature. So radius of curvature can be written as one R equals. So I think you would have done somewhere in the differential mathematics. Okay, so dy by dx into x square to the power of 3 by 2. Okay, and then divided by dy by d square y by dx square. Okay, so this you would have already got it from somewhere in the mathematics. Okay, I don't remember exactly where, but it's in the differential calculus. So you have this. Okay, radius of curvature. So r is equal to 1 plus d square dy by dx whole square to the power of 3 by 2 divided by d square y by dx square. Okay, so that will be your radius of curvature. So here, what is dy by dx? Dy by dx is your slope, okay, with respect to the your y displacement. So here, normally your dy by dx is small. So when then what happens? Dy by dx whole square will be very small, okay, very small. So in that case, so for example, if I take dy by dx is 0.1, then dy by dx whole square is 0.01. So this would become even very smaller. So I can ignore this. So I will ignore. So I will write that next. Ignoring your dy by dx, which is very small. So we have r is equal to 1 by d square y by dx square. Okay. So r 1 by r is nothing but you will have dy by dx. Okay. So I will use this equation in the previous one. Okay. So let me take that. So equation number 3. Okay. So equation number 3, then I'll call this as equation number 4. Okay. So using this, using 4 in 3, what we get is we get 1 by r. 1 by r is nothing but so you just cross multiply, then it will be d square by dx square. Okay, so your d square y by dx square equals 1 by r equals d square by dx equals so then you write the entire other terms. Okay, so whatever is there in the in this you write it. Okay, w by r, sorry, w by y ig into l minus x. Okay, so I'm just writing this right hand side, whatever is there on the right hand side. Okay, so all these things I'm going to write here. Okay, so this will be w into l minus x divided by y into ig. Okay, so now how to get this y? So the reason why I'm using this y is nothing but y is the your depression. Okay, because we are talking about the point P, not the point N. So at point P, y is the depression. So if I can get the value for y, then I can actually solve the entire equation for your Young's modulus, capital Y. Okay, small y is the
Okay.
so small y is the so you have someone has any question? Hello, you have any questions? Okay, so if I know this y is nothing but it is the depression, then what happens is I can get the value for capital Y, which is the Young's modulus. Because as I explained, W, L, X, Ig, everything can be found out by experiment. So I need just this Y. So how to get this is by using your how to get your Y. So from d square y by dx square, you have to get the Y. How do you get it? Can anyone tell?
Differentiating both sides.
So differentiating, then it will become d cube y by dx cube.
Sir, integration.
Integration.
You have to go to reverse, right? You have to go just reverse. You have to just reverse it. Reverse means
Yes,
your
integration.
Integration, sir.
you have to do the integration. So if I integrate, so I'll use only the right hand side two equations, and then I'm going to integrate. Okay, integrating, what you get is d by dx into dy by dx. I'll just split it. Integral is equal to integral of w into L minus x by y into ig. Okay, so that is your first one. So now what I do, I just cross multiply this dx to the other side. So what you get is integral of d of dy by dx equals, so I will take all these constants outside, okay? W is weight constant, Young's modulus is a constant, and Ig is your geometrical moment of inertia, that is also constant, okay? So this will be L minus 6 into dx, okay? So now what happens, you just simplify this. So this will become, the left hand side will be dy by dx will be equal to W by y into Ig into, you have your this integral of this is L times x minus x square by 2, okay? So is it okay? So that is your integral of the this term. So next you have to just do the one more time integration, then you get equation for your small one, okay? So just a minute. So what I will do, let me, I think so I will stop here because I think it's almost time. So maybe your teacher will be waiting. So let me stop at this point and then we will again continue tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow we will join at 11. So 11 to maybe 11:30 or 12, we will do the rest of this. Okay. So I need only maybe like so 10 more minutes, but I think it will be not good for the next class. Okay. So that is why I'm going to stop here. So just practice this. I will again explain this tomorrow. When I start the class, I will explain up to this point. Then we will go to the next one. Okay, so we'll carry on with the rest of the your derivation. Okay.